Mountaineer Nation, thanks for tuning in to this edition of Fox on West Virginia Mountaineer Sports. As you can see, a little bit of a different look and feel. Got some new additions to the office space, so really nice gift from my parents for Christmas. I wanted to get incorporated. I just didn't know how with using a webcam for my camera. Of course, got the West Virginia Swami here, as always, with all of my videos and some new stuff on the wall. So hope you like the new look and feel. Still works with my microphone, so I hope everything still connects for this show and works everything auditorily and visually. So for the last couple of nights, as you know, that we have been talking about West Virginia football's action in the transfer portal, and we are definitely going to still do so tonight because West Virginia received 4 new commitments today, bringing their grand total as of 9:22 Eastern Time p.m. here on Wednesday night up to 14 total commits, and West Virginia really adding it some nice position groups. So thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, please smash that like button so that more Mountaineer fans can see this across YouTube. Would love to have you a subscriber to my channel. I've been getting a few over these last couple of days. So if you're tuning in for this wild ride that is college football right now, buckle up because it is the wild, wild west. And that's where I think I want to start with tonight's show. So of course, we're going to talk about West Virginia football, transfer portal recruiting news. I promise you that. And we're going to talk about some of the players who have now left in the transfer portal and some of the destinations that they're popping up. Then, of course, makeshift overview of the roster from kind of top to bottom. Seen some comments from some fans out there and kind of wanting to understand what is the context in the specific moves and the overall roster depth chart. There's still a lot that's going on. Jumping in and commenting on how the sausage is made while it's being made sometimes can get you in a little bit of trouble, I feel like, and thinking you're panicking when there's still things in the hopper that West Virginia could be doing. Like I said on last night's show, I think this is you can equate it kind of to house shopping. So if one pops up on the market and you don't get on, you bite there, you can try at another one. If another one pops onto the market, and then ultimately with the players that you settle on, you'll have to be at the end of the day satisfied and not have buyer's remorse if other options become available. And West Virginia is really cooking right now. But for today's show, starting it off, it is absolute madness in the world of college football right now. And I think I want to take some time out of tonight's video to comment on it. It all started out, I feel like, yesterday. Again, if you're following Twitter right now, it is just drama in the world of college football for news. A Colorado booster, according to an article or comment made to the Denver Post, and of course regards to Colorado's football team, so Deion Sanders, a longtime donor saying to the Denver Post, quote, "You give them that check and the guy's gone tomorrow. To hell with that. That ain't happening to me. No allegiance, no money." And I think this is part and parcel a quote, and you can call this quote so many different terms and fewer or more words, that this is the chaos that is college football right now. And the donor fatigue that is kind of bubbled up, I feel like, over 2021 and 22 to now that the house settlement being settled and supposedly being there, a $20.5 million cap according to the house settlement. And I think all of it is just pie in the sky thinking that this college sports commission, the new NIL Go clearinghouse in conjunction with Deloitte that was supposed to be the enforcement arm of the NCAA, kind of delegating that responsibility to them. It's unenforceable. And to tell you the truth, again, what's going to be brought down on players. So really, the whole grand scheme of things was that now, because of the house settlement, and that outside collectives were supposed to be brought in-house to athletic departments so that they could make 501c3 tax-deductible donations. And that's what West Virginia did, bringing Country Roads Trust in as part of the Mountaineer Athletic Club to form Gold and Blue Enterprises. So some still have collectives kind of lurking in the darkness. Some, like the Matador Club, most namely out at Texas Tech, has been brought in-house. But it just seems as if all of this money is getting formed up into one. And and you can take it by the notes of, about a month or so ago, Cody Campbell down at Texas Tech and being very vocal about this. And then it seemed like everybody across college football schools didn't jump on board in ratifying or codifying, however you want to call it, the enforcement of the College Sports Commission, because they knew what was coming up with transfer portal recruiting this time of the year, with this one chaotic period from January 2nd to January 16th, and they're letting a free-for-all happen. And the ones who have the most money are the ones who are going to be able to out there and dominate from a monopoly standpoint. And I'm just kind of sick of it, that there are these billionaire, millionaire, donors out there who they are the ones who now control college sports. In that, it's great that there is now this $20.5 million that West Virginia is trying to raise, I feel like, with their own grassroots in-house efforts, but it's still, at the end of the day, going to be how large of a fan base, alumni base with the deepest pockets, who are going to be able to raise enough money, and then how those athletic departments are able to either launder money through different corporations, or the schools themselves have different corporate partners through alumni. You're hearing this happening with LSU. In the way that they tried to restructure the NIL deal for Brendan Sorsby, who eventually chose Texas Tech. So you can only imagine what Texas Tech's done. You hear the announcement today, just a little earlier tonight, that Mark Cuban, Indiana grad, because of all the success that they're seeing on the football field, he's making a donation because he's understanding that if you have money in the bank in your war chest, that you're able to go out there and buy the best players. So if you have a standout coach like Kurt Signetti, and you can go out there and you can buy the best players to support that. It is Major League Baseball in the same kind of form of fashion of the Dodgers and the Yankees, and they're going out there and buying players. And I just don't know if this College Sports Commission has the teeth to go out there against some of these actors. What are you going to go and are you going to suspend players or rule them ineligible, give suspensions to coaches? Like, how are you going to bring about the enforcement, and how soon is it going to be? I feel as if they just have to have an army of auditors, army of lawyers that they're going to deploy across the country at all of these Power 4 programs to see if they're doing this above board. And based upon what I'm reading in the Athletic and elsewhere, it sounds like none of them are abiding by it. And I don't think that West Virginia necessarily, I don't know if they're necessarily doing anything wrong per se. I think that's just what kind of the perception and the narrative is out there across college football, is that the biggest of the biggest of the big programs are the baddest of the bad actors, and they're all doing it in the name of competing, again, of what they have to revenue share and to these 5-star high school prospects. And we just caught past early signing day about a month ago, and now it's, I feel like, coming to a head with transfer portal recruiting. And when the numbers go up and up and up for these players, reportedly, whenever you were supposedly instituting a salary cap this past summer, none of it makes sense. So that's why I feel like just absolute chaos right now in trying to understand the way that this is going. And I just think the onus is going to be put on a College Sports Commission that the proof will have to be in the pudding in the next few months once all is said and done. I mean, because there's cases with, I think this is kind of a separate conversation, but I mean, part and parcel, you have a player in Damond Williams out at the University of Washington, saying signing a deal for $4 million to stay as Washington's quarterback, and then a couple of days later he hits the transfer portal because apparently he's being tampered with by LSU to come down and be LSU's quarterback, while Sam Leavitt is being hosted there from Arizona State on his official visit. Now Leavitt's like, what all this? I'm wrapped up in all this chaos. I'm gonna now go visit Tennessee. So all of it comes back to the end of the day. I guess bigger picture, Carson, you've gone on this rant for this long. What's your point? Is that I think West Virginia is doing everything they can with the alumni base that it has and the financial means that from its fan base to be able to contribute to this program. I looked this up on the Mountaineer Athletic Club's website. It's totally you can go and find this information. It was very easy for me to find on their website. West Virginia had for the year of 2025, so I don't know if that just ended on December 31st or if this is, I don't know where they're pulling these numbers, but I just found it on their website of when it ended, that they had $14,222,000 raised for the Mountaineer Athletic Club in the year of 2025. That's awesome. I mean, I feel like and I don't know if that's some of these, Pat McAfee, Ken Kendrick, big donations, because, I mean, on their website, it spells out whether you give at a $100 level, I don't know if that's for a year, $50 level, etc., all the way up to the Summit Society, which is $25,000 or more for the year. But West Virginia, I feel like as us as fans are doing everything that we can to buy tickets, to show up to games, to pay for the game day experience, and then also contribute to all of the efforts that are going on operationally to see West Virginia be as successful as humanly possible in this landscape of college football. And I can tell you they're doing a whole lot better than others, but still, is that good enough to beat to keep up with the Joneses of Oregon, with Phil Knight, with Michigan, with all their large donor base? Say Larry Ellison's girlfriend wants Michigan to get Bryce Underwood, and he can drop a check through Barstool Sports to be able to pay Bryce Underwood to come to Michigan. That is the shell game company. If you're not familiar with what's going on, is that these schools are working with third-party companies to float money through to them in order to pay players, because then that could theoretically get through the NIL clearinghouse because it's coming through from a different company, outside organization, corporation, etc., to be able to pay a player as part of their NIL deal package in conjunction with whatever the Rev Share is giving them. So it's just this is 4D chess, I feel like, in 2025 to try and stay above board, and it's completely dirty. I remember athletic director Ren Baker on the Three Guys Before the Game podcast this past spring or summer, and talking about how he'd been mulling over the idea of West Virginia University athletics having a similar approach to what the Green Bay Packers do for their ownership, really. And I think that's kind of essentially what the Mountaineer Athletic Club people who contribute, that's what they're doing. We are all in this together. I feel like as fans if you don't financially support the Mountaineer Athletic Club, I really don't feel like your say in 2025 really matters on just about anything, because that's what it takes. It takes the war chest, unfortunately, the professionalization of college athletics to be able to keep up with the Joneses out there across college sports. This is the money game. This is why everything is the way it's so chaotic, with schools trying to poach other coaches during the season, get them in there before the transfer portal recruiting, because everything is necessary. Alignment from your president down to your athletic director, down to your head coach, the functionality of a head coach this day has to be practically a politician with the alumni base, maybe 50% or more of the time, to be able to have goodwill with them, for them to write checks for their programs, to get funding to play, football namely getting the most, then men's basketball, and then baseball and the other sports. So politicking to get that Rev Share money, to get that NIL money that's all conjoined into one pot at the end of the day. And then you have to, if that's not enough, being full-time evaluator, recruiter, not only of high school recruits, but also of transfer portal recruits, which are players on other teams, and if watching enough film on them, so that you can say either if they've entered the transfer portal or you're tampering with them to get them to go into the portal to then offer set amount, a la Jordan Addison with Pitt in 2021 to USC. It's just like, it's so slimy, it's so gross, and I just I'm thankful that West Virginia is keeping up and really going out there and shooting their shot with their transfer portal recruits as of right now, because it's definitely, and I feel like they still have work to do, but this is definitely better than what West Virginia had been dealing with, I feel like, since NIL and the transfer portal new age world of college football started under previous head coach Neil Brown, and what they have today. So let's get into it. How West Virginia do. So I think I want to back up all the way to midnight of last night, so I guess, or this morning. So Wednesday, now when this video comes out on Thursday, I'm not staying up all the way till midnight, y'all. I was refreshing Twitter to see if news breaks on this stuff. I value my sleep way too much, and I hope you do too, to rely and on the whims of 18 to 24-year-olds. So the biggest news were last night, and then we'll go through today. David Afogo, redshirt junior bandit, outside linebacker, 6'3", 245 pounds, listed a defensive end on Bowling Green's athletic website. He only ever played at Bowling Green, so just coming over from one school. We'll talk about some other players who have come from multiple schools. 37 tackles, 5 tackles for loss for Afogo, ever at bandit position. So I was kind of thinking to myself, after we talked about last night, Malachi Hood coming in, and West Virginia had also gotten Isaiah Patterson already from UNLV, and I heard that and I thought, that's nice, but West Virginia already has, out of Jeremiah Johnson, Curtis Jones Jr., and some freshmen, it's great to add another body at that position, but is it really necessary to have another linebacker included as part of this room? Well, later that afternoon, news breaking that Curtis Jones Jr. was entering the transfer portal, and this one kind of stung. Wasn't a player when I did my video a few weeks ago talking about the top 5 players that West Virginia really needed to retain for 2026. I felt like he was kind of maybe in that 6 through 10 range, but not necessarily 1 through 5. Really like what Curtis Jones contributed this year. For a guy who was kind of just really a true athlete out of high school, former 2-star recruit, to coming in, body was kind of at 6'2", 205, to now he's put on 20 pounds of sheer muscle. Kind of felt like he was kind of fitting in that Swiss Army knife position. Didn't know if he would potentially play nickel. Found his home kind of at rotational bandit linebacker behind Braden Siders and some other guys, and while his snap count totals and his numbers don't really pop off the page, I think he just did a lot of little things that all added up to one whole player that you really like, especially whenever he said, hey, I played running back in high school, I could come in and play running back. Yeah, he didn't get that 1 yard that Coach Rodriguez was so mad about from that Arizona State game that he pointed out in the press conference, but to tell you, I liked what he was able to just plug and play there, where all the storyline out of after CJ Donaldson's injury-plagued first year at his size, just a little bit bigger than Curtis Jones, but not much. It sounded like he really needed to learn how to take hits, and it really didn't seem to affect Curtis Jones per se in those last couple of games of the year that he started to get more carries for West Virginia at running back. So whether you tried him out as a two-way player, stuck him still at linebacker or kept him at running back, I think that he had a place for this team. So who knows? Maybe he's just trying to test the waters, test free agency, see how he can get paid more than what he's being offered at West Virginia, and go from there. So, man, as an in-state kid who West Virginia really took a shot on out of Cabell Midland High School. West Virginia has been pretty successful down in that region of the state. I feel like in recent years, especially under Neil Brown, taking a flyer on him as a former 2-star recruit, seeing him develop up to this point in time, you really hate to see him go. That's just me as a fan and the guy who kind of loves to watch the development and of growth of college football players. But unfortunately, we don't get that anymore. It's just constant rebuilding, retooling to your roster. There is no really growth and development track, I feel like. So that's unfortunate, but maybe a Fogo kind of steps in there in that role. We'll have to see if maybe West Virginia gets involved with another player, or Jeremiah Johnson kind of steps up, or because we're going to talk about another linebacker that West Virginia got, is West Virginia trying to gear up for more of a 4-2-5 scheme? I think that would be a logical, appropriate question to ask Coach Zach Alley at defensive coordinator, whether there's any changes potentially to the scheme. That was a question that was asked to Jordan Leslie in the transition from 2023 to 24. So I think it's fair to ask Zach Alley if you're trying to go to more of a 4-2-5 look, with an emphasis more on down linemen on the defensive line and only playing 2 linebackers, 5, kind of hybrids in the secondary, whether you have a nickel kind of stepping up as a third linebacker, so on and so forth. So we'll have to see if that's the case. So that's kind of my analysis on that. Kamari Wilson was the next commit earlier this afternoon. Redshirt senior, safety, 6'1", 210, like the size, speed combination. Out of Memphis. Previously was at Arizona State in 2024. Before that, Florida. So stayed at all the way in the SEC to what was then the Pac-12, back down to the G6 level. Memphis, highly productive G6 program. Now back up to the Power 4 level at West Virginia. 84 tackles, 6.5 tackles for loss, sack, 2 interceptions, 4 pass breakups, a QB hurry, 2 forced fumbles, and fumble recovery. Wilson filled up the stat sheet. So I think he's going to start day one at safety for West Virginia. And West Virginia has an obvious need at safety as well as cornerback, which it seems like West Virginia's kind of filled that with Malik Hawkins, Gamir Latimer. We're going to talk about another one here in a second than West Virginia also got today. And then at the safety position, are you bringing Nick Taylor over and from that cornerback for good? He played most of his snaps at safety, although kind of started out at cornerback and liked him. That's where he played at App State 2 seasons ago. I'd like to keep Nick Taylor, if possible, at that cornerback position, but then that leaves more of a positional need at safety. Or if you bring Nick Taylor over, maybe Wilson starts here. And then the third safety position is one of a combination of either, I feel like out of the out of the JUCO group, the Damari Williams JUCO player, either Vincent Smith or Matt Sieg. Or does West Virginia continue to add at that safety position? We'll just have to see. So it's kind of like I said, sausage is being made, I feel like, in that defensive secondary right now with a couple of these commits. But really like what I see out of Kamari Wilson. I think fans are going to absolutely love him. Big hitter. So one of the hits that I saw him put on Arkansas's Talon Green, rang my bell. So love that one. Then later, this was about right before I left work, so right around 5 p.m., I feel like, the news, Tyler Stolsky, redshirt senior linebacker, 6'3", 225 pounds, Florida Atlantic this season, previously at Minnesota, originally from the state of Minnesota, out of high school, so makes sense. Started out at the Power 4 level, went down for a year to, the American Conference, and now back up to the Power 4 level in his last season's worth of eligibility. Highly productive in the tackles category, 90 I think he was second on the team. So was Kamari Wilson, by the way, just going back to him at that point. 2 tackles for loss and a fumble recovery. Loved seeing the club that he had on his hand. So it just goes to show that he can fight through pain. He's a warrior out there. That's kind of the hard edge mentality I feel like that Coach Rodriguez wants in his defense. But again, now West Virginia has 4 linebacker commits between Patterson, Hood, Afogo, and now Stoltzky. Of course, Ben Bogle's entered the transfer portal. Curtis Jones has entered the transfer portal, who were guys who were supposed to be returners for this program. A lot of turnover in that linebacker room. Marshawn Oxley, Keenan Eck at the other Bandits, Caleb Newey-Yandel, and also Michael Hasty. But West Virginia has now gone out there. They replaced what is, I would say, 3 inside linebackers with 3 inside linebackers, still retaining, as of right now, at least Ben Cutter and Ashton Woods, and then Cam Torbor, and bringing in 4 true freshmen. And then at the Bandit position, while you lost Oxley, Eck, and Curtis Jones, bringing in Afogo, Jeremiah Johnson, Noah Tischendorf, who the staff's really high on potentially, to start at Bandit outside linebacker, Carter Kessler, and Camden Gillespie. So does West Virginia continue to add, or do I think where West Virginia needs to go is more on the defensive line, on the defensive ends especially? I'll come back to that, kind of put a pin in that for now. The last commit that West Virginia... I kind of want to pause on a couple of West Virginia players that have now found another destination. Oh, boy. So Jason Cross at safety and now Jaheim White at running back have committed to Neil Brown in North Texas. Holy moly. I'll save my thoughts on Jason Cross because I don't think it's necessarily that relevant. But for Jaheim White, I guess if it all works out, that, after the 2 consecutive years worth of knee surgeries that he's had, if he can go down there, I'm sure they made him a very nice, generous, like North Texas has some money, nice, generous NIL package. Probably not the same kind of money that maybe higher than what Neil Brown or Rich Rodriguez and his staff offered him currently for 2026, but definitely not as high as what West Virginia gave him for 2025, and he didn't play the whole season. I bet in betweens where Neil Brown and North Texas offered him, if he can go out down there and put together the kind of season, sustaining that he had in 2023, better than 2024 in 2026 after these 2 consecutive knee injuries, then I'm rooting for the guy. I truly do. There's nothing against Jaheim White. Was a guy who was kind of an under-recruited guy out of York, Pennsylvania that was found at a summer camp. Neil Brown and the Brain Trust there believed in him originally out of high school, stuck by it, kind of wanted to lean more his way in 2024 over CJ Donaldson, kind of the 1A, 1B timeshare, so they believe in him. And of course, I wanted to see the best for him in 2025. I think he could have had a Cam Cook-like season. That's a little bit over embellishing it with behind West Virginia's offensive line, but it's just like, man, everything was kind of like written on the wall. I feel like for Cam Vaughn for Jaheim White to have an awesome 2025 season. It's just a damn shame that the last thing for Jaheim White's West Virginia career will be that play against Ohio that he just got assaulted basically on the field, tore up his body, and now he's gone. So it's just really disappointing end, I feel like. But I hope that he can go down there. He can go tear it up, not for the benefit of Neil Brown, but I feel like for himself to then jump back up into the Power 4 level. Do I think he had some other options at the Power 4 level? Yes. And I think he should have explored them. I don't even know if it was for the same kind of equivalent money or less, but I think he's a Power 4 level running back. So even like I don't want him to be lumped in with the statistics once all is said and done of like how many G6 players or FCS players or players who don't find homes at all get lumped together in terms of like the argument that like, oh, Coach Rodriguez and the West Virginia staff exported players to the transfer portal that didn't have enough talent to play at this level. I don't think Jaheim White was one of those guys. I really do. I really think if they made, I'm not faulting West Virginia for the offer that they extended to Jaheim White. Again, were you going to pay him for past production, which he didn't give you any for 2025, or were you paying him for future results, which is very uncertain because of the injury situation with him? Is he going to bounce back being the same? And if he's not able to go kind of fully in spring practice, or like how is he come over the summer? And players coming back from ACL injuries aren't necessarily 100% always right off the cuff. Not everybody is Adrian Peterson. So for Jaheim White, like I understand where he's coming from. I understand where Coach Rodriguez is coming from. But I do just ultimately think that he, at the end of the day, was a Power 4 player. And, we'll just have to see whether Cam Cook's production in 2026 exceeds what you would have potentially got in Jaheim White, or see what he does down at North Texas. So not necessarily still, though, an apples to apples comparison. And then also very interesting that Florida is hosting Cam Vaughn. So I have to just monitor that situation. We can talk about it down the road. But again, same difference. Still think he is a Power 4 player. And if he's able to, go up, according to some, especially SEC fans, Florida fans, go down to, down to Florida, well, again, have to evaluate it in the same kind of form of fashion. Would he been able to give you better results in 2026 than what you're able to, what West Virginia offered him? I guess you're never going to be able to tell that because we don't know what the money was offered. Moving back on to the commitments that West Virginia's had, Andrew Paldrell, senior cornerback, 5'10", 185 from UNLV, previously at the most recent FCS national champion, Montana State, out of the Woodlands High School in the Woodlands, Texas, right outside of Dallas, Fort Worth. Committed today. 2025, 8 games played with the Runnin' Rebs, 29 tackles, half a tackle for loss, 3 pass breakups. You got to imagine that the coaching staff just liked what they saw on film from Paldrell out there at UNLV. So now that's 2. So 2 UNLV Runnin' Rebels. With Isaiah Patterson. Wonder if there was any sort of, talking by Patterson like, hey, you need to go out there and get my teammate kind of thing, or how this is rolling. Then the last one I feel like is kind of the biggest news, or the one that's going to really make people smile ear to ear. West Virginia finally jumped onto the offensive line. This was just as I was kind of setting up my little recording space here a little bit ago tonight. The biggest news, Devin Vass, redshirt junior, right guard, 6'6", 310 pounds from Kansas State. Didn't play for the Wildcats in 23, so he redshirted in 24, didn't play either. Finally got onto the field in 2025 with 420 snaps. Now, again, Kansas State, you would argue, kind of underachieved for a team that was kind of supposed to contend for the Big 12 title. Ended up forcing their head coach Chris Kleiman out, bringing in Colin Klein as their head coach. Now Devin Vass hitting the transfer portal, passed on Auburn. Originally was kind of the rumors out there that he was going to Auburn, and then late this evening, bam, here's the news that he's a Mountaineer. Also, passing on Auburn as well as UCF. So, wow, like West Virginia needed guards, as I had said, with Donovan Haslam hitting the transfer portal and Kimo Makaneole, Walter Young-Bear graduating, West Virginia really not having much depth behind him. Devin Vass will be a guy who will kind of plug and play, I feel like, at that right guard position, get coached up by Coach Trickett and get in the Coach Joseph strength and conditioning program. And then West Virginia also brought in Deshaun Woods out of the JUCO level from Butler Community College in Kansas. So if those guys both compete, they're both redshirt juniors, then fantastic. Add competition to the room on the offensive line group. But just going out there and proving that you can bring over some Power 4 level talent, that makes me happy, and I'm sure that makes you, as the listener to this video, happy that West Virginia is adding to its offensive line. So Step back at this point in time, almost now 10 o'clock here on Wednesday night. West Virginia still has about 9 days left of this with the transfer portal open. Now 14 commits through the transfer portal. Michael Hawkins at quarterback, Cam Cook at running back, Prince Strachan at wide receiver, DJ Epps at wide receiver, Devin Vass at right guard, Will LeBlanc on the interior defensive line, David Afogo at outside linebacker, Bandit, Malachi Hood, inside linebacker, Tyler Stolsky, inside linebacker, Isaiah Patterson, inside linebacker. Starting safety, Kamari Wilson at cornerback, Gamir Latimer, at cornerback, Malik Hawkins, and at cornerback, Andrew Paldrell. So that takes your total up to 14. I still feel like West Virginia needs to make a move in a half dozen spots. Wide receiver 1. There's no one. I mean, I can't say as of right now that Prince Strachan and DJ Epps fill that role as a wide receiver 1 out there. There is a guy that West Virginia is apparently courting, seeing some pictures of his experiences. He's in Morgantown as of right now. Redshirt freshman Teron Francis from LSU. High school teammates with new commits, Greg Wilfred and John Johnson III from Edna Carr High School outside of New Orleans. So there's a connection there. That's great. You always need that, I feel like, for the benefit of West Virginia, to have some pre-established connection. Guy was the number 150 player out of the 2025 high school recruiting class, 4-star, now like 19th wide receiver in the country, number 19. So I'd absolutely love to see him get on, even though, playing for a blue blood program in LSU, not necessarily seeing the field. Man, it might be a tough stretch against some guys who are definitely older than him, but he might be West Virginia's number 1 wide receiver, just kind of stepping out there. Or does West Virginia try and, continue to add another guy around him? You got these JUCO guys, Keon Hutchins and Kendrick Triplett. Can you make a starting 5 necessarily out of those wide receivers if you bring in Francis? So I still think wide receiver is a position of need to go out in the transfer portal. At tight end, Noah Bram hit the transfer portal at the tight end position. So right now it's Ryan Ward and a bunch of guys who didn't play. One guy who didn't play, Carter Zuliani, just a redshirt freshman, and then 3 true freshmen in that room. So I think West Virginia needs to go out there and get another tight end, and then I think at left guard, I think to replace Donovan Haslam, if it's Vass or Woods at one of those 2 guard positions for this offensive line. And then, as we've already talked about, Nick Cray at left tackle, Landon Livingston at center, Kevin Brown at right tackle. I think you got to go out there and go get yourself a left guard. Could that be Wes King, who I've already been talking about over the last couple of days, from Wyoming, who's supposed to visit? That might be the guy West Virginia might continue to add there. I also think at the defensive end positions for sure. Asani Redwood committing to USF, good for him. Jackson Beiser hitting the transfer portal. Adam Tomzik. West Virginia's basically down to at defensive end Wilnerson Telemock and Brandon Caesar, who didn't play in 2025. Or I think Telemock played 1 snap. So again, and they brought over Darius Wiley over in the transfer portal from Hutchinson Community College. Big, I think I remember talking about him, 6'7", 6'7". So what I mean to say again, does West Virginia, I think you got to go out there and get 2 defensive ends, some upperclassmen guys who can provide leadership. You have to build in the trenches. So to build up this offensive line, or defensive line, or do you try and kind of spread it out across? If you're going to a 4-2-5, can guys like Corey McIntyre, Jalen Thomas, KJ Henson, Nate Gabriel, maybe even Taylor Brown, now you've added Will LeBlanc, can they spread out and maybe play one of those defensive end positions? Do they have the speed to be able to do so at all around 300 pounds, or those guys that you want to keep on the interior to be a true nose tackle in the 3-3-5 scheme, if that's the way the setup is? I also think, as I already talked about, starting safety, I think they made a great start there with Kamari Wilson, but again, just putting it out there that either Matt Sieg or Vincent Smith as true freshmen have to be out there and start for you at safety, that's a lot to ask for, I feel like, in the Power 4 level, as we've seen evidenced. Even though, really, congratulations to Matt Sieg being named by the Maxwell Football Club. I think that's the award, the Maxwell Award, National Player of the Year out of high school, so good for him. Again, lives about 15 minutes down the road from a different school district than mine. And then, again, or is it Damari Williams? And then also, we cannot forget about this. Special teams, y'all. Kicker. So West Virginia added at punter in Chase Ridley from Australia. Love that. On early signing day. But kicker is still a mystery. Is it RJ Koken? Is it Nate Flower? Like, I'm okay with those guys if they want to take over kind of a kickoff specialist role. I think it was either Flower or Koken kicked the onside kick. I think it was in the Texas Tech game or Arizona State. Can't remember. But West Virginia needs a kicker. One just entered, and it would be kind of wild if West Virginia stole him. But I really like that Trey Butkowski, actually, from Pitt. Lefty kicker, but he's got a boot. I think 20 for 23 on the season, long of 47, just entered the transfer portal today. That would be a huge kind of like, oh man, a Pitt player coming over to West Virginia, but I really liked his ability. And I think West Virginia needs to go out there and get someone who can be a weapon, because we saw how Arizona State was able to use their kicker to be a weapon, come through with the game-winning kick late in the fourth quarter out there in Tempe, game that I was at. So I think West Virginia just like a Michael Hayes. Cade Hensley was decent this past year, but go out there and get yourself a guy. And if they have the extra years of eligibility like Butkowski has, he was a true freshman, even better. Fantastic. And got Power 4 level experience. So I think that just about rounds it out for today. Oh, again, busy day in the transfer portal and the roster management operation of this West Virginia football recruiting staff. Getting guys who are Power 4 level quality players, and or guys who are at the G6 level who are very highly productive players who are on the ascension, it feels like, in the development of their careers. So couldn't always say that about some of other players that West Virginia has recruited in the past. So I'm happy right now. How are you feeling, Mountaineer Nation? Love to know your feedback. Leave it here on YouTube. I know I went a little long with my rant about the Rev Share and NIL and what's going on with the transfer portal, but love to know your thoughts about that as well. Whether you agree, disagree, everything in between. Again, please like this video so more Mountaineer fans can see it across YouTube. But love to have you a subscriber to my channel. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. Taking my wife out on a date tomorrow night. So not going to be making any videos like one of these. So unfortunately won't have a video for you as I usually do on Fridays. But I hope that videos these last few days will kind of hold you over in between. And I'll be back to talk more transfer portal recruiting maybe over the weekend. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hail West Virginia. Let's go and spot the ball. Oh, and let me know how you're feeling about this setup too, whether you like it or not. Thanks.